appreciation to UNAM, to Dr. Adolfo Gallardo, and especially to Julieta with her awesome work in coordinating and getting this all to come into play. In his keynote speech, Jim Matarazzo had some things that he kind of put out there that, from my perspective, he had some things right and he had some things wrong. What he had wrong specifically is not everything is free and available through Google. If you get involved with any kind of business-related information, you find out pretty quickly that there are hundreds, if not thousands of companies and markets that are out there whose business model flies in the face of the concept that everything is free through Google. What he had right was that libraries, whether they are corporate or academic, and even taking into specifically librarians who are corporate or academic, must make decisions to do things differently. There is no other option but to rethink everything that you're doing. In her keynote speech, Susie Allard focused on libraries needing an entrepreneurial spirit. And that is something that we at the Rome Parish Library have taken to heart. So my hope and goal with this is to sort of tell you a story for the next 10 or 15 minutes. I'm not really sure how long the story is going to go, so we'll see. Purdue University is a land-grant institution. It's one of the state universities for the state of Indiana. This is where, if I can get somebody to click on that paragraph just to the right of the Purdue graphic so it zooms in. To the top. And then straight a little bit. So while he struggles with that, I'll keep talking. The mission of Purdue University is, of course, research and education for students, research for the faculty. But because of this land-grant institution concept, which has the university placed in a role for agriculture, engineering, and in some other specific fields, and sort of an underlying theme that the university has sort of taken hold of is its role for supporting regional economic development. And I hate podiums. So I'm going to try and move around as little as possible, but I'm used to moving around a lot. The Parish Library has taken this university concept of regional economic development and pulled it into our own sort of strategic initiatives. Let's see if I can get back into this. Now, across the university, there have been several key elements that have affected everything that we're doing. At the university library level, things like EPUBs and the Purdue University Research Repository, this is some of that big data. This is collecting faculty research and publications and their research data sets and putting it into a repository to share out to other researchers and other institutions. You can actually go into this PUR and look at a map and see over time where people are downloading data and the working papers and the research papers there. It's really fascinating. On the education side, Purdue University, over just the last couple of years, has rolled out a core university curriculum so that the students start to have sort of a common path through the beginning of their life at the university. And specifically, information literacy was one of the key pillars within this core curriculum. So we were at that table pushing the need for information literacy to fall in at the same level as every other facet across the university. In addition to this, about now 5-6 years ago, we at the Rome Parish Library were probably within 6 months to a year of being kicked out of the Crane School of Management building. At that point, we were the second and third floor of the building. We had some study tables, we had a bunch of stacks. Our second floor, the second and third floors, the third floor of the building was about 14,000 linear feet of books. And the School of Management saw very little value in us. We were doing a lot. They just didn't see it. We had a fairly robust business information literacy instruction program. We were working with a handful of faculty on projects. But the school as a whole, the Cram School of Management as a whole, just saw us taking up space, and space that could have been used in some better way. So what we did was we conducted some focus groups, some student surveys, we visited several other institutions, and pulled this all together into both a physical and conceptual renovation. The physical renovation was we actually gave up almost the entire third floor, so we went from about 13,000 linear feet of books on site to about 200 linear feet of books on site. Because especially with business information, it's very heavily electronic. So the physical spaces then started to mutate over a 3 to 4 year, three-phase renovation. And I won't go into too much detail, but this whole renovation could be its own whole presentation as well. But we started to develop more functional, more interactive spaces for learning, for instruction, for students. We really wanted to key on the concept of third place on a university. Not the classroom, not where the kids live. It's that in-between space where they spend most of their time. And over the course of this renovation, we created a wide variety of spaces so that students could potentially use the parish library over the course of a week, 3, 4, 5 different ways, and the space met every single one of those needs. Now, my story here will get to my points of how we connect to service and entrepreneurship and the focus of this conference. But I want to kind of set a stage for the background of how we got to where we're at. So along with this physical renovation, we also did this conceptual renovation. And the conceptual renovation was to rethink the concept of sitting at a reference desk with our hair in a bun, shushing students, waiting for someone to ask us a question. The stereotypical librarian. We really started to work very hard on changing the mental model of what the students, the faculty, the university, the community thought of us. Not necessarily as librarians, but as information consultants. Because that phrase, information consultant, changes how a person reacts to you and what their expectations are. So with that change, that started to help us leverage some of the things that we were doing in a much more effective way. And this phased renovation that we started to work through, started to show the School of Management what we were trying to become. By the end of this whole renovation, we had become the crown jewel in the School of Management. Every alumni that visits, every guest speaker that visits, every potential incoming student that visits campus gets toured and walked through the library by someone from the School of Management. Because we are now such a showcase space for what the entire management school and program is trying to do. Yay us. So what have we done? What we started to do was leverage the successes that we had to start to create these external partnerships. And this is where I really was trying to work towards. So, conceivably, the very first one that we started with was something like the Experiential Learning Initiative, that little tiny label in the middle. This is a program that we're actually copying, that we copycatted from the University of Michigan, where master's MBA students are partnered with actual businesses out across the country who have submitted basically mini consulting problems. Those MBA students work together in small teams to deliver a solution to that problem, learning how to become consultants. My team in the Parish Library serves as information consultants to those teams, which then feeds information, which they then sort of distill out into their final recommendation to the clients that they have. So, as we leverage this success, because the School of Management was very excited about developing this further, because as the University of Michigan has done it, they've now built it to the point where the companies bid money to have the chance to basically buy the teams, one of the teams. We're not quite at that level yet, but we're slowly working at it and building a reputation for that. The activity that we did there then led to some of the other partnerships that we had, including the biometric program and the Purdue Extension business and the eBid. Biometric is a joint course between the biotechnology department and the School of Management. What they then do is work together to try and solve a specific healthcare medical problem. Within this class, they start out with a small number of projects, which they then, through talking with practitioners out in the workplace, by conducting research into the markets that relate to it, winnow those ideas down through sort of a process of elimination until they have one or two really good ideas, which they then start to work with the Office of Technology Commercialization and the Purdue Research Park to incubate that idea into a real business. So what we're doing is we're trying to provide information to these students who are on the very edge of becoming entrepreneurs, creating new companies, providing new services out to the community, out to the world. All starting from this classwork that they then work through the process. Purdue Extension is a level of university that historically used to support the agricultural development within the state and within the region. But as technology has caught up with agricultural production, the Extension Office services were being used less and less. So they then saw their role as promoting greater regional economic development and economic gardening, in essence. And that's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, is economic gardening. And that's where you start to identify industries, producers, services that are already started in your region, and you start to help them build and grow outside of their own perspective and outside of their own region. So that maybe they're only, at this point, looking at just Indiana or just the 8 or 10 counties that they're serving at this point. What the Purdue Extension is doing is trying to expand that so they start to look across, maybe a much broader region across the country, across the globe. And we're now providing this economic gardening, business information support to Purdue Extension at this. Finally, the last piece, and if I could get you to click on the little EDV graphic. This is one that we've started to work with just over the last 3 or 4 years. About 7 to 8 universities have started to do this. And if you could zoom out just a little bit. Okay. No, go back to that. Show the graphics underneath. Show the graphics underneath. The little bar. And the little bar below. Yeah, right there. So this is a very unique situation where U.S. military veterans who have retired or been injured from serving on their deployments have now come back and no longer are in service. What they are then doing is they're actually trying to start their own businesses. They're brought into one of these institutions where they spend a week learning how to become an entrepreneur, learning how to run a small business, generating, percolating their ideas, bouncing it off of the other management faculty. There are class sessions that they go through every day. And we have a specific role within this, supporting how they find information to determine who their target market is, what regions of the country might be most beneficial for their location, what are the regulatory, what are the financial issues as it relates to information that builds into this. So this is a really unique situation that we become very heavily involved with in creating these partnerships with the university, but again, potentially helping to incubate these services and other entrepreneurial ideas that then move on out into the workplace. Within this concept, What's really exciting and touching about it is how appreciative these men and women are after they basically spent so much time serving their country, and to then have be surrounded by a group of people who are doing nothing but serving them. By the end of the week, it's stunning just to see where they've gone from a Friday to a Sunday over an entire week across this process. And Kathy covered some, and I'm nowhere near in 18 minutes. So Kathy covered some others, and I wasn't sure how we were going to do this. There are some other examples of some institutions that are doing some things. You might, if you go look at this, look some of these other institutions up to see. I'm going to say Kathy covered those pretty well with some of the things. So what are some of the benefits? That was one of the key questions that I saw in this, is what are really some of the benefits of this? Well, supporting regional economic development is good for everyone. Lowers the tax base, promotes a more engaged, more intelligent, more informed community that the university sits within, that the parish library, that the university libraries serve. It supports this idea of technology transfer and commercialization, so that potentially you're starting not just looking external, but you're realizing that these students are not going to be with you forever, and they're going to become those external clients down the road. And it strengthens the community, the general community, between the collaboration between the university and the community. What we see at times is we don't want to be perceived as this island in the middle of Lafayette and West Lafayette, the two cities that Purdue sits within, where there's no connections or communications. So these collaborations that we have, this work that we do, and there are a couple of smaller ones that I didn't mention, create a stronger level of collaboration between that local community, which in the long run creates a whole stronger perspective of the university and the whole region as a whole. Benefits to partners are things like improved decision making. They're accessing, and through our training, through our resources, better, higher quality information. They're balancing what they find through Google with things that they are not able to get through Google, or that they can't afford to get it because Google takes them just to the doorstep and then says, please enter your credit card number. So within that, we give some opportunity because of that land-grant institution role that we have to provide some access to our resources and balance the access to that information. It also develops an ecosystem of collaboration. The West Lafayette and Lafayette bus system serves Purdue University. The university has no transportation system of its own. Years ago, the university and the two cities figured it would just make more sense to have just one and combine it all together. There are lots of little facets like that that continue to happen, and some of the things that we're doing, slowly leads to things like that. Benefit to us, the library at Purdue, exposure to a broader audience. Visitors to the university, residents of the city, find out about some things that we were doing. A good example is somebody walked in just about a few weeks ago, had no connection to the university other than he lived in Lafayette, but knew that we provided some entrepreneurial support. We sat down with him and helped him find a whole batch of information on this small business that he wanted to start. And again, it's just goodwill to try and connect that and create those relationships. And again, it attracts alumni when you see things like this happen, which can lead to donors, which can lead to things like the renovation. At the very beginning of that renovation, the county was terrible. We used only Purdue University renovation funds. Phase 2 was a mixture of renovation funds and donor support. By phase 3, it was almost completely donor support because of what we were doing and what we were showing, and we could justify everything that was happening and how much better things would be if you would just help us. So some of this is all connected from start to finish. So issues for the future for us, we really have to watch for issues of balance, scale, and support. We continue to have tremendous support from the School of Management and from the upper administration of the university libraries, as well as the university as a whole. But we're only 3 faculty librarians. We have a very small team. And there are times when we know we keep saying yes and we need to stop saying yes. It's no, not, maybe in the fall, maybe next semester, so that you can kind of balance this all out. Because once the successes start, it can really snowball, and all of a sudden you're in front of the snowball and it's going to roll you, it's going to crush you. Continue to seek opportunities. We will continue to seek opportunities. We'll watch for opportunities. Continue to have conversations with potential partners. And this has been said a couple of times, and I swear I put this up. I added this amazing adjustment just last night, so I know, Susie, I think you had this in your presentation, and I did not copy it from you. We have to be bold. We have to make bold decisions and bold choices, and we have to make changes. So, thanks very much. Gracias. And if there's any questions.